She sat hungry beside her brothers. Then the cowboy lifted them onto his horse and rode home. Emily sat on the rough, sun-baked ground, her small legs stretched out in front of her, and her little brother James curled up beside her. Across from them, little Anna tugged at the hem of her worn dress, her tiny fingers dirty and sticky. The morning had been long, hot, and merciless. The three of them had wandered as far as they could from the small, crumbling farmhouse where they lived, hoping to find something to eat. But the fields were empty. The garden weeds had overtaken the last vegetables, and the old chickens had gone long ago. Emily's stomach rumbled painfully, a sharp reminder that they had not eaten anything since yesterday evening. She tried to ignore it by looking out over the dusty plains. The sun shone high in the sky and the air shimmered with heat. Even the birds seemed tired, hiding in the sparse shade of the few trees scattered across the land. The wind blew softly, kicking up tiny clouds of dust that tickled Emily's face and made her cough. Her brothers were just as hungry. James rubbed his eyes with the back of his hand, and Anna whimpered softly, pressing her cheek against Emily's arm. Emily tried to comfort them, even though she felt a cold worry curling in her chest. "It's okay," she said softly. "We'll find something soon." But she wasn't sure if she truly believed it. Hunger had a way of making the world feel darker and lonelier than it really was. Their farmhouse sat a few miles back, a small wooden building that had seen better days. The paint had peeled long ago, and the roof had holes that let in the rain during the storms. Inside, there was almost nothing left to eat. Their mother had been too weak to leave the house, lying in bed with a bad cough that shook her tiny frame. She had whispered to Emily that she needed to keep the children safe, but even that seemed like a difficult task. Food was scarce and the cupboards were bare. Emily looked at her brothers and tried to summon courage she did not feel. She was only 10, but she had become the caretaker in the absence of adults who could help. She had learned to be brave because there was no other choice. She had washed the little ones' faces, tied their hair back, and kept them close, even when her own stomach ached. She had told them stories to make them forget the hunger. Stories of magical lands where the fields were full of fruits and the skies rained sweet water. Sometimes it helped. Sometimes it did not. The children had tried to find food that morning. They had walked along the old dirt road that led out of the town, past abandoned barns and overgrown fields. Emily had hoped to find a lost apple, a forgotten loaf of bread, or even a small berry bush that had survived the summer. But the land was dry and unforgiving. Even the weeds had shriveled in the sun. James had kicked at a stone in frustration, and Anna had clung to Emily, tears running down her dusty cheeks. Emily felt a heavy weight in her chest. It was more than hunger. It was fear. What if no one came? What if their mother did not get better? What if they were alone forever? She pressed her hands over her face for a moment, taking deep breaths, trying to hold back the tears. When she looked up again, the world seemed even bigger and more empty. She felt so small in it, a tiny figure surrounded by a harsh, endless land. They sat for a long time in silence. Occasionally, Emily would hum a quiet tune, one she remembered from her mother, a song that used to fill the kitchen with warmth. She thought of the last time they had shared a proper meal together, the aroma of fresh bread and the soft light in the room. She clung to that memory, letting it give her strength, even as her stomach twisted painfully. The children were not alone in their struggle, even if it felt like it. Birds flew overhead, casting fleeting shadows on the dusty ground. A rabbit darted past them, pausing for a moment as if it were watching, then disappeared into the brush. The wind brought the faint smell of smoke from a distant house, a reminder that somewhere people were living, cooking, and surviving. Emily held on to that thought, letting it spark a tiny hope that maybe help could be found. Hours passed slowly. The sun moved across the sky, and the shadows shifted. Emily shifted her position, keeping her little brothers close, listening for any sound of a passing wagon or a familiar voice. But the world remained still, empty, and silent. She felt every ache, every pang of hunger, and every worry pressing on her young shoulders. Yet, despite it all, she refused to give up. She would not let her brothers feel hopeless, not if she could help it. Emily's hands were rough from trying to dig in the dry soil, hoping for roots or wild plants. Her dress was torn in places, and her hair clung to her sweaty forehead. She looked at James and Anna, trying to smile, even when her lips trembled. "We just have to wait a little longer," she whispered, though she did not know who she was convincing more, the children or herself. As the sun began to lean toward the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, Emily felt a small flicker of hope. Perhaps someone would pass by soon. Perhaps a kind stranger would notice them and help. She closed her eyes for a moment and pictured a man on horseback, someone strong and kind who would come to lift them from this place. The thought felt like a small comfort, like a warm hand holding hers in the cold. Even though they were hungry, tired, and scared, Emily did not let despair win. She kept her brothers close, told them stories, and imagined a better tomorrow. She did not know how it would come, or when, but she believed that help was possible. Somewhere, beyond the horizon, there might be a kind soul riding toward them, someone who could change everything. The three children sat together side by side as the evening approached. The sun dipped lower, and the first stars began to twinkle in the sky. The world felt quiet and vast, but Emily held on to hope. She did not speak much, but the bond between them grew stronger in the silence. They had each other, and that was something no hunger, no fear, and no distance could take away. And in that quiet moment, with the wind brushing against their faces and the sky turning dark, a single thought stayed in Emily's mind. Maybe, just maybe, help would come. The afternoon sun had begun to soften, casting long golden shadows across the dusty fields. Emily squinted against the light, scanning the horizon for any sign of life. Her little brothers, James and Anna, had grown quiet, their energy spent from wandering and hoping. Hunger made them listless, but Emily refused to let despair take hold. She shifted slightly, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered to herself, "Someone will come. They have to." It was then that she noticed something moving in the distance. At first it was just a small dot, barely visible against the shimmering air. But gradually it grew larger, and Emily's heart began to beat faster. She leaned forward, shielding her eyes from the sun. There, slowly approaching along the dirt road that ran beside the fields, was a man on horseback. His broad shoulders were outlined by the sunlight, and his hat shaded his face, giving him a mysterious but kind appearance. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen him before, but something about the steady way he rode made her feel safe, as if he carried strength and kindness in equal measure. She looked down at her brothers and nudged James gently. "Look," she whispered. "Someone's coming." James lifted his head, rubbing his eyes. Anna, sensing her sister's excitement, pressed closer to Emily's side. All three children watched in silence as the man drew nearer. His horse was sturdy, its hooves kicking up small clouds of dust as they moved over the dry, cracked earth. The man's movements were calm, deliberate, and Emily could see that he was not in a hurry. He was taking his time, noticing the world around him. When the man finally stopped a few yards away, Emily could see him clearly. He was tall, with a sun-worn face and kind eyes that seemed to look right through to her heart. His clothes were simple but clean, and he carried a small pack across his shoulder. He looked at the children with curiosity, and then with gentle concern. "Hello there," he said, his voice warm and steady. "Are you all right?" Emily swallowed hard, unsure of how to respond. The words caught in her throat. She wanted to tell him everything: the empty cupboards, their hungry bellies, their mother lying sick in bed, but fear and shyness held her back. The man's eyes, however, were patient and encouraging. He knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to their level. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to be afraid. I just want to help." Emily's hand reached out to brush James's arm, and together they looked at the man, unsure if this was real. We haven't eaten," she whispered finally, her voice trembling. "And our mom, she's sick." The man nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes.
"I see," he said. "That's very hard."
"You've been very brave to stay together like this." He paused, then smiled gently. "My name is Sam. I live a little ways from here, and I can help you." Emily felt a small spark of hope flicker in her chest. Someone knew their struggle and wanted to help. She had not felt this feeling in a long time, a warmth that made her believe things could get better. She looked at her brothers, who were staring at Sam with wide eyes. Even Anna's soft whimper seemed to quiet down in his presence. Sam lowered himself from the horse slowly, letting the children see that he meant no harm. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small wrapped bundle. "I brought some food," he said, offering it carefully. "You don't have to eat it now if you don't want, but it's there." Emily's eyes widened and her hand shook as she reached for the bundle. Inside were pieces of bread, some cheese, and a few small fruits. She offered a piece to James and Anna, and they each took it with trembling hands. For the first time that day, they tasted something other than hunger. The food was simple, but it felt like a feast. Emily chewed slowly, savoring every bite, and felt a warmth spreading in her chest. As they ate, Sam sat on a nearby rock and watched them. He spoke softly, telling small stories of the open fields, of animals he had cared for, and of adventures he had experienced. Emily listened, captivated, and for a moment she forgot about the emptiness and hunger that had haunted them. Her brother's laughter returned in quiet little bursts, and Anna's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Emily finally found the courage to ask, "Why? Why are you helping us?" "Because everyone deserves help when they are in trouble," he said. "I remember being a child, scared and hungry. I know how it feels, and if I can help someone now, I will." Emily felt tears prick at her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief rather than sadness. She realized that kindness still existed in the world, even when it seemed like everything was against you. Sam's presence, calm and reassuring, had changed the way she felt about their situation. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. After a while, Sam stood and walked back to his horse. He held out a hand to Emily, helping her and then James and Anna to stand. "I can take you somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere you can eat properly and rest." The children hesitated, unsure if they could trust a stranger. But Emily looked at Sam's kind eyes and felt the courage she had been holding onto for so long. "We'll go with you," she said finally. Sam lifted James gently onto the horse first, then Anna, and finally helped Emily climb up behind him. The children clung tightly to him in the saddle, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. The horse snorted and shook its mane, and then, slowly, they began to move along the road. As they rode, Sam spoke softly to keep the children calm. He told them about the small town ahead, about people who were kind and ready to help. Emily listened, her head resting against Sam's back, and for the first time in a long time she allowed herself to imagine a life where they were safe and cared for. The journey was not long, but it felt magical. The wind brushed their faces, the sky glowed with the warm colors of late afternoon, and the dust seemed to sparkle in the sunlight. Emily looked around, noticing the beauty she had forgotten existed. The distant hills, the gentle sway of the trees, the tiny flowers pushing through the dry soil. Sam kept talking, sharing stories of his life as a cowboy, of the animals he had rescued, and of the lessons he had learned. The children laughed softly at some of his stories, their hunger momentarily forgotten, replaced by curiosity and wonder. Emily realized that kindness could feel like warmth spreading through your chest, like the sun reaching even the coldest corners of your heart. As the sun began to dip behind the hills, casting long shadows across the land, the town appeared in the distance. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the sounds of life reached their ears. Dogs barking, people talking, and the faint sound of a wagon on the road. Emily's heart leapt. They were almost there. Sam guided the horse through the quiet streets, leading the children to a small inn where the owner, a kind woman with a warm smile, welcomed them immediately. There was food on the table, a soft bed for the children to rest, and a gentle assurance that they would be safe for the night. Emily felt tears of relief slip down her cheeks. At last, they were no longer alone. That evening, as they ate their first proper meal in days, Emily thought of their journey, the long hours of hunger, the despair, and then the sudden unexpected kindness of a stranger. She looked at James and Anna, their faces glowing with contentment, and whispered a quiet thank you in her heart to Sam. He had appeared when they needed him most, and his simple act of compassion had changed everything. For the first time in a long while, Emily allowed herself to dream of a better future. She imagined days filled with laughter, warmth, and safety. And as she drifted off to sleep that night with her little brothers beside her and a full belly for the first time in days, she knew that hope had returned, brought by the kindness of a man who had seen 3 hungry children sitting alone beside a dusty road and had chosen to help. The sun had started to dip low in the sky, painting the horizon with shades of orange and gold. The warm glow touched the dusty fields and the small, quiet road where Emily and her brothers had been sitting for hours. They had been waiting, hoping, and wishing for someone to come. And now that the cowboy Sam was there, their hearts beat fast with a mixture of fear and excitement. Emily held Anna's hand tightly, and James fidgeted beside her, his small feet kicking up tiny clouds of dust. Emily could feel her stomach twisting, partly from hunger, partly from nerves. She had never climbed onto a horse before, and the idea of riding so high with her little brothers made her anxious. But she knew that Sam was their chance for safety, and that thought gave her courage. Sam dismounted from his horse slowly, steadying the animal with gentle hands. The children watched closely, not quite believing that this stranger had appeared in their lives to help them. Sam knelt slightly and spoke softly, his voice calm and kind. "Are you ready to come with me? You'll be safe, I promise." Emily nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, we're ready," she said, trying to sound braver than she felt. She looked at James and Anna, who both nodded back, their eyes wide with trust and hope. Sam smiled warmly, a comforting light in the fading sun, and began helping them one by one. He lifted James first, placing him carefully on the horse in front of him. James held on tightly to Sam's waist, his small fingers gripping the leather saddle. Emily watched as Anna was lifted next. She rested her head against Sam's back, and for the first time in days, she felt safe, cradled in the strength of someone who cared. Finally, Sam turned to Emily. "Now it's your turn," he said gently. Emily hesitated, glancing at the ground, but then looked up at his kind face. She took a deep breath, clutched her brothers close, and let Sam help her climb onto the horse behind him. The horse shifted slightly beneath them, and Emily held on tightly, her heart racing with nervous excitement. As they began to move, Emily felt a mixture of awe and fear. The horse's hooves kicked up dust with each step, and the wind brushed against their faces. The landscape passed quickly, fields and fences blurring together, and Emily realized that they were leaving their small, empty farm behind. For the first time, she felt like they were moving towards something better. Sam spoke softly to the children as they rode, his voice steady and reassuring. He told them about the town ahead, about the people there who would feed them and make sure they had a warm place to sleep. Emily listened carefully, clinging to every word. Her stomach, though still hungry, felt lighter with the promise of food and safety. The ride was not easy. The dirt road was uneven, and the horse stumbled slightly over stones and small dips. Emily instinctively pressed herself closer to Sam, feeling his steady strength beneath her hands. James and Anna clung tightly in front of her, their small bodies shaking a little from the motion. Emily whispered soft words of comfort to them, just as she had done when they were hungry and alone, reminding them to hold on. As they rode, Emily began to notice the beauty of the world around them. The sky was painted in brilliant oranges and pinks, and the gentle hills rolled away in the distance. The wind carried the smell of fresh grass from a nearby field, a scent that made Emily feel alive and full of hope. For the first time in days, she felt that perhaps the world was not entirely harsh and empty, but still full of moments of kindness and beauty. Sam guided the horse with skill, keeping them on the safest path. Occasionally, he would look down at the children and smile, a silent reassurance that they were not alone. Emily felt tears prick at her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. Someone had seen them, cared enough to stop, and now they were moving towards safety. She could hardly believe that their lives could change so quickly. The sun continued to sink lower, casting long shadows across the land. The children rode in silence for a while, listening to the steady rhythm of the horse's hooves and the soft whisper of the wind through the fields. Emily could feel the tension slowly leaving her shoulders. The fear that had weighed on her for so long began to ease, replaced by a growing sense of hope and security.
"Are you okay back there?"
Sam asked gently, glancing over his shoulder. Emily nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, thank you." Sam nodded, as if he understood exactly what she meant. "You're very brave," he said. "I know it hasn't been easy, but you're doing great." Emily smiled faintly, feeling a little pride swell in her chest. She thought of her mother, lying sick at the farmhouse, and felt a quiet determination. She promised herself that she would keep her brothers safe, no matter what, and that they would remember this moment, the moment someone came to help when they had almost given up hope. As they approached a gentle curve in the road, Emily saw the first signs of the town ahead. Smoke rose from chimneys, and she could hear the faint sounds of life, dogs barking, voices calling, and the distant clatter of wheels on the road. Her heart leapt. They were almost there, almost to safety, almost to warmth and food. The horse moved steadily, and Sam guided them through the quiet streets. Emily could see people going about their daily lives, completely unaware of the 3 hungry children who had been sitting alone in a field just hours before. She felt a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. How had they been so close to despair, and now so close to comfort? Sam led the horse to a small inn, its windows glowing warmly in the evening light. A kind-faced woman came out immediately, her eyes widening when she saw the children. "Oh, my goodness," she said softly. "You poor things. Come inside. You'll be safe here." Emily's heart soared. They had made it. Finally, they were no longer alone. She helped her brothers down from the horse, and they followed Sam inside, the warmth of the building wrapping around them like a soft blanket. The smell of fresh bread and soup filled the air, and Emily felt tears of relief stream down her face. The woman led them to a table and set food in front of them. The children ate quickly, savoring every bite as if it were a treasure. Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude toward Sam, who had guided them through the fields, lifted them onto his horse, and carried them to safety. She could hardly believe that a single person's kindness could have such a profound impact. After they had eaten, Sam spoke quietly to Emily. "You've all been very brave," he said. "And now you'll be safe."
"I'll make sure you have help and care from here." Emily nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders.
For the first time in days, she allowed herself to rest, to believe that things could get better. She looked at her little brothers, who were smiling and laughing quietly for the first time since morning, and felt a deep sense of relief. That night, as they lay in warm beds provided by the inn, Emily thought about the day's events. The long hours of hunger, the fear, and the uncertainty had led to this moment of safety and hope. She knew that their journey was far from over, but with Sam's help and the kindness of strangers, they had found a path forward. Emily drifted to sleep with her brothers close beside her, feeling a sense of peace she had not known for a long time. She thought of Sam, the kind cowboy who had seen 3 children in need and had chosen to help. In her heart, she promised that she would never forget his kindness, and that one day when she was strong enough, she would help others just as he had helped them. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Emily felt a quiet hope settle in her chest. They had been lifted from hunger and fear, carried to safety by someone who had chosen to act when it mattered most. And for the first time in a long while, Emily believed that no matter how dark things seemed, there could always be a light shining somewhere, sometimes in the form of a kind stranger on a horse, willing to make a difference. The small inn smelled warm and comforting, filled with the scent of fresh bread, simmering soup, and the faint sweetness of baked apples. Emily could hardly believe her senses. After the long day of hunger, fear, and endless waiting, the smells alone made her stomach ache in a different way. A comforting ache, one that promised nourishment and safety. Her brothers, James and Anna, had already begun to nibble at slices of bread, their small hands shaky but eager. Sam guided them to a corner of the inn where soft blankets and pillows had been set up. Emily's heart swelled with relief as she saw the small beds arranged neatly, each one inviting and warm. She helped Anna climb into the nearest bed, tucking the blanket carefully around her. Anna's eyes, once dull and weary, now sparkled with curiosity. "Emily, is this real?" she whispered, voice trembling. Emily smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Anna's forehead. "Yes, it's real," she said softly. "We're safe now." She felt a strange mixture of disbelief and gratitude. It had been hours, maybe even days, since they had felt this kind of safety. Her own heart was still racing, but the warmth in her chest told her that they had finally crossed a threshold. Sam stayed nearby, leaning against the wooden railing of the inn's front room. He watched quietly, letting the children explore and adjust to the safety around them. Emily noticed that he seemed calm, almost as if he had done this many times before. Yet she also saw gentle care in his eyes. He did not rush them, did not demand anything. He simply stayed present, a steady figure in a world that had been anything but steady for the children. After a few moments, the kind woman who ran the inn approached. She was middle-aged, with soft eyes and a gentle smile that immediately put Emily at ease. "Come with me," she said warmly. "I'll show you to the beds, and then you can wash up. You must be tired and hungry." Emily nodded, taking Anna's hand and gently guiding her along. James followed closely behind, his small steps quick and eager. The woman led them to a room in the back of the inn, where clean water, soap, and towels had been set out. Emily's heart lifted at the simple comforts. She helped her brothers wash their faces and hands, and then they dried off, feeling lighter and more human than they had in days. Emily caught her reflection in the small mirror above the sink. Her hair was dusty, her face smudged, but her eyes held something new, a spark of hope. After they were cleaned and dressed in the simple clothes the woman had provided, the children returned to the main room, where the table was set with a warm meal. Bread, soup, and a small portion of roasted vegetables awaited them. Emily could hardly believe it. She had not eaten so freely in what felt like an eternity. She encouraged her brothers to eat slowly, savoring each bite, but they were too hungry to listen. James devoured the soup, slurping loudly, while Anna bit into the bread with a quiet intensity, her eyes wide with delight. Emily allowed herself a small piece of bread, chewing carefully and feeling the warmth spread through her body. She glanced at Sam, who was leaning against the wall, watching with a faint smile. "Thank you," she whispered softly, almost to herself. Sam nodded once, acknowledging her words without interruption. The gesture, simple as it was, filled Emily with gratitude and relief. Once the children had eaten, Sam spoke quietly to Emily. "You've been very brave," he said. "And now, you're in a place where people will help you. I'll make sure someone checks on your mother, too. She will be cared for." Emily's heart leapt. You can?" she asked, hope breaking through the remnants of worry. Sam nodded. "Yes, you don't have to worry about her alone anymore. Things will be different now." The afternoon turned slowly into evening, and the inn became a place of quiet comfort. Emily and her brothers explored the small room they would sleep in, testing the soft blankets and marveling at the warm beds. Anna picked up a small, folded cloth that had been set on the pillow and hugged it tightly, smiling for the first time in days. Emily sat beside her, holding James's hand as he rested against her side. For the first time since the morning, they felt safe, truly safe. As night began to fall, the innkeeper brought Sam a cup of tea and gestured for him to sit. He did so, settling into a chair by the fire. Emily and her brothers, full and warm, huddled together on the small couch nearby. The firelight danced across the room, casting long shadows and making the evening feel cozy and safe. Sam spoke to the innkeeper quietly, arranging for a social worker to come the next day and check on the children's mother. Emily listened from a distance, her heart filling with relief. For so long they had been alone, with no one to turn to. Now help was coming, and she could finally breathe without the constant weight of worry pressing on her chest. Emily thought about the events of the day, the long hours of sitting in the hot sun, The hunger, the fear, and then the sudden appearance of Sam. It all felt surreal, as if she had lived through two worlds in a single day, one of despair and emptiness, and one of warmth, kindness, and hope. She realized how much she had missed the simple comforts of life: food, shelter, safety, and someone who cared enough to help. The children spent the evening talking softly among themselves. Emily told her brothers stories to distract them from the events of the day, stories of magical lands and brave heroes. They listened intently, their imaginations rekindled by her words. The inn, with its warmth and light, became a small sanctuary where fear could not reach them. Outside, the world grew dark, but inside the inn, there was a sense of peace. Emily could hear the faint sound of other guests in the building, but it no longer felt threatening. Instead, it felt like a community, a small space where people could care for one another. She glanced at Sam, who was quietly finishing his tea, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had not only saved them from immediate danger, but had shown them that kindness still existed in the world. As bedtime approached, Emily tucked her brothers into their beds, pulling the blankets up to their chins. She kissed their foreheads and whispered, "We're going to be okay now." Their eyes were heavy with sleep, but they nodded, trusting her words completely. Emily lay down on her own bed, feeling a rare sense of relief. Her body was tired, her stomach full, and her heart lighter than it had been in days. In the quiet of the night, Emily thought about the journey ahead. There would still be challenges: finding a permanent home, ensuring her mother's care. But for the first time, she believed that these challenges could be met. She realized that hope, even the smallest kind, could be a powerful thing. It could lift weary hearts and guide people through the darkest moments. Emily's mind drifted back to Sam, the cowboy who had appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. She imagined him riding across the plains, strong and kind, ready to help anyone in need. She promised herself that she would carry forward his kindness when she could, helping others as he had helped them. The children slept soundly that night, the warmth of the inn and the safety of their surroundings cradling them. Emily's dreams were filled with a sense of adventure and hope, of days where hunger and fear were replaced with laughter, warmth, and love. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to rest fully, without worry or anxiety. Outside, the stars shone bright in the clear night sky, and a soft breeze whispered through the trees. The world seemed vast, yet not lonely, and Emily felt a connection to it that had been missing before. She understood in a quiet and profound way that safety and kindness could be found even after the most difficult trials. And in that moment, as the inn's warm lights glowed softly and the children slept peacefully, Emily felt a deep, unwavering hope. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, they had been lifted from despair, carried into safety, and given a chance to start anew. The morning sunlight streamed gently through the inn's small windows, painting the room in warm golden hues. Emily stirred slowly, feeling the soft blankets beneath her and the gentle warmth of the sun on her face. For the first time in what felt like forever, she did not wake to the pangs of hunger or the weight of fear pressing on her chest. Instead, she felt safe, rested, and alive. Beside her, James and Anna were still sleeping, their faces peaceful and free from worry. Emily rose quietly, careful not to wake them. She moved to the small window and looked outside. The town was alive with the sounds of morning, the clatter of hooves on cobblestones, the chatter of merchants opening their shops, and the distant laughter of children playing in the streets. It was a world full of life, warmth, and possibilities, a world that felt completely different from the empty, dusty fields they had left behind. Sam was already awake, sitting at a wooden table in the main room with a cup of tea. He looked up and smiled when he saw Emily at the window. "Good morning," he said softly. "Did you sleep well?" Emily nodded, feeling a smile spread across her face. "Yes," she said. "I haven't slept like that in a long time." She glanced back at her brothers, who were beginning to stir.
"We're really safe here, aren't we?" Sam nodded.
"Yes, you are. And today you'll find out that safety can last, not just for a few hours, but for as long as you need it." Emily felt a flutter of hope. She had been so used to uncertainty, to never knowing if they would have enough food or if their mother would be all right. Now, for the first time, she could imagine a future where those worries were eased, where they could rebuild their lives slowly, step by step.
After a simple breakfast prepared by the kind innkeeper, Emily, James, and Anna were introduced to a social worker who had come to check on their mother.
Emily's heart leapt when she learned that her mother would receive care, medicine, and attention that she had needed for so long. The woman explained patiently, ensuring the children understood that their mother would be safe and supported. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. Once the arrangements were in place, Sam took the children to visit their mother. Emily's mother lay in a small, comfortable room, clean and well cared for, with soft blankets tucked around her. Her cough had eased, and her eyes brightened when she saw Emily and the children enter. "My babies," she whispered, reaching out to touch their faces. Emily's heart soared at the sight. Emily explained to her mother what had happened, the long hours of hunger, the lonely fields, and then the appearance of Sam, who had carried them to safety. Her mother listened, tears streaming down her face, and pulled Emily close. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know what we would have done without him." Sam stood quietly to the side, a faint smile on his face. He felt no need for praise. The children's safety and their mother's care were reward enough. Emily, however, could not help but feel a deep sense of gratitude toward him. He had appeared when they were most vulnerable, lifting them from despair and into hope. Over the next few days, Emily and her brothers began to adjust to life in the town. They were fed regular meals, slept in warm beds, and spent time exploring their new surroundings. The town was kind and welcoming, and Emily realized that there were people in the world who would care if you were in trouble, people who could be trusted. For so long she had felt that life was harsh and lonely, but now she was learning that kindness could shine even in the darkest moments. Emily's mother received care and treatment that slowly restored her strength. Emily watched as her mother's energy returned, her laughter once again filling the small home they now shared in the town. The children felt a sense of stability they had never known before. Where hunger, fear, and uncertainty had once dominated their days, now there was warmth, safety, and hope. One afternoon, Sam returned to visit them. Emily and her brothers ran to greet him, their faces glowing with excitement and gratitude. "I wanted to see how you're all doing," Sam said warmly, brushing a hand over Anna's hair. "You've been very brave. I'm proud of you."
Emily felt tears prick her eyes.
"We couldn't have done it without you," she said softly. "You saved us."
Sam shook his head gently.
"No, you saved yourselves. You stayed together, looked out for each other, and never gave up." "I only helped guide you." Emily thought about the days of hunger and fear, about the long hours sitting beside the empty fields, and realized that Sam was right. Their bravery had carried them this far, but Sam's kindness had illuminated the path. She understood now that courage and kindness often went hand in hand, and that sometimes a single act of compassion could change everything. As the days passed, Emily and her brothers began to rebuild their lives. They attended the local school, where teachers welcomed them warmly, helping them catch up on lessons they had missed. Emily discovered a love for reading and storytelling, sharing tales of bravery and hope with her classmates. James found joy in drawing and exploring, while Anna delighted in learning new songs and games. Emily often thought about the long fields where they had once sat hungry and afraid. She remembered the fear, the hopelessness, and the emptiness of those hours. But she also remembered the moment Sam had appeared, the steady kindness in his eyes, and the way he had lifted them onto his horse. That memory became a guiding light for her, a reminder that even in the darkest times, help could come, and hope could return. One evening, Emily sat with her mother and brothers by the small fireplace in their new home. The warmth of the fire, the smell of freshly baked bread, and the soft chatter of the family created a sense of peace that Emily had never known. She looked at her mother, who smiled at her with gentle pride, and at her brothers, who were laughing quietly as they played with a small wooden toy Sam had given them. Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. Their lives had been changed by one person's compassion, and she knew that she wanted to carry that forward. She wanted to help others, just as Sam had helped them, and to show kindness wherever it was needed. She realized that while fear and hunger could dominate life for a time, courage, hope, and compassion had the power to transform it. That night, as the family settled into their beds, Emily held her mother's hand and whispered softly, "We're going to be okay now. We'll be safe, and we'll be happy." Her mother squeezed her hand in return, and Emily felt a wave of warmth and reassurance. The long nights of fear and uncertainty were behind them, replaced by a sense of stability, love, and hope. Emily thought about the future and smiled. She knew challenges would still come, but she also knew that she and her brothers had the strength to face them. With their mother's care, the kindness of strangers, and their own courage, they could navigate whatever came next. The stars twinkled outside the window as Emily drifted into sleep, her heart light and her mind at peace. She dreamed of open fields, kind faces, and adventures yet to come. Most importantly, she carried the memory of Sam's kindness and the hope it had brought with her. That hope was no longer fragile or fleeting. It was strong, steady, and ready to guide them into a brighter future. The next morning, the family awoke to the sounds of the town. Children laughed and ran in the streets, merchants called to each other across the market, and the sun shone warmly on the new day. Emily stretched, feeling the strength returning to her body and the joy of life flowing through her heart. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, supported by love, courage, and the kindness of those who believed in helping others. Emily smiled at her brothers and her mother, feeling a profound sense of peace. Their journey from fear and hunger to safety and hope had been long and difficult, but it had shown them the power of compassion, the strength of family, and the importance of never giving up. They had been lifted from despair by one person's kindness, and now they would carry that light forward in their own lives, helping others and spreading hope wherever they could. And so Emily, James, and Anna began their new life, safe, cared for, and full of hope. They would remember the long days of struggle, the fear, and the uncertainty, but they would also remember the moment that changed everything. The cowboy who had seen 3 children sitting hungry and alone and had chosen to help. That memory became a part of them, a symbol of courage, kindness, and the belief that even the smallest acts of goodness can create a life forever changed.